Lieutenant Mara Voss sat alone in the dim blue glow of the deep space listening post, surrounded by blinking lights and the constant hum of the main receiver array. Her eyes were tired, but her hands moved automatically over the controls as she scanned through the usual static and bursts of meaningless radio chatter from the stars. Then, without warning, the sound changed. It was sharp or broken, as if someone was whispering from the other end of an impossible distance. Her breath caught when a voice came through, fractured and urgent. It was a voice she knew, one she had heard only in official broadcasts months ago before he vanished. Ambassador Rin, Earth's only envoy to the alien Oran Council. His words came in gasps, as if every second of transmission was costing him something valuable. "They are coming. Prepare, trust no one." The voice cracked under static, then returned with more weight in its tone, as if he was about to say something final. The sound clipped mid-syllable, replaced by an electronic silence so sharp it made Mara's ears ache. She leaned closer, trying to force the signal back, but the stream had gone completely dead. Her monitor showed the origin point, a set of coordinates deep beyond the patrol zones in a sector marked uninhabitable. No ship should be alive. There. The hairs on her arms rose. She switched to record mode and copied the message to the station's core before sending a coded alert to Earth Command. She waited for the link to open, but when the face of Admiral Keene appeared on her display, his expression was unreadable. He listened without interrupting, then after a pause told her in a flat voice to delete the recording. Effective immediately classified threat control, he called. "It." The tone in his words was cold absolute and left no space for questions, but Mara felt the pressure of something heavier pressing down on her instincts, told her deleting it would be the worst mistake she could make. She hesitated long enough for the link to close, then slid a small drive from her pocket and made a hidden copy of the entire file before wiping the system clean for the official log. Her heart was hammering by the time she powered down the console and stepped outside into the silent night. The station stood alone on the cliff edge overlooking the black stretch of ocean below. Wind whipped against her uniform, and she breathed deep, trying to calm herself. But then she noticed it, a faint buzzing, like an insect, yet sharper, mechanical. She turned and spotted a small black shape hovering 20 meters away, its surface smooth without markings. The drone's red lens glowed, faintly aimed straight at her. It stayed perfectly still, as if studying her, then slowly drifted backward into the dark until it blended with the night sky. Mara's chest tightened. She knew that kind of drone did not belong to any public registry. They were the eyes of agencies whose names never appeared in headlines. She started down the path toward the transport pad, her boots crunching against the gravel, each sound too loud in the stillness, and she kept glancing over her shoulder, certain the drone was still there. Somewhere she reached her small shuttle, sealed the hatch, and punched. In the departure code, engines flaring to life as the craft rose into the air below, the waves crashed in endless rhythm, but her mind was locked on the voice she had heard the way it had broken off in mid-warning. She could still feel the urgency in it, the weight of a man who knew his time was running out. She replayed the phrase in her head. "They are coming, prepare, trust. No one." Each word felt like it had been chosen to survive being cut apart by static, as if he had calculated the smallest message that could still carry the biggest danger. The coordinates haunted her. They were far outside any shipping lane, in a place where both Earth and Oran maps marked only silence. She wondered how Rin had even reached there alive, and if he had died right after sending the signal, or if something worse than death had happened to him. She thought of the political whispers from months ago about cracks in the Oran Council, some factions wanting peace, others seeing humans as intruders, and wondered if Rin had stumbled into the wrong side of that divide. Her console beeped softly, breaking her thoughts. It was a secure ping from her personal communicator, a single line of text from an unknown sender. "You have something that does not belong to you. Return it before you disappear." The message deleted itself before she could even blink. She sat frozen in the pilot's chair, her mind flipping through possibilities, none of them good. She looked out at the stars ahead, sharp and cold, in the void. And for the first time, she felt their beauty replaced by a sense of being watched by something far beyond human eyes, something moving toward Earth, even now silent and patient and unstoppable. The next morning, Mara woke to the faint tremor of her shuttle's hull as she drifted in low orbit above the Pacific clouds, stretching in endless white beneath her. She had not slept well, her dreams twisting with fragments of Rin's broken voice and the silent red glow of the drone. She kept the copy of the message locked inside a private data core hidden under the floor panel of her ship. Yet even that did not feel safe. The words from the self-deleting warning still pulsed in her mind. Return it before you disappear the threat was too deliberate. Too certain, she opened a comm link to Cade Wren, an old friend who had once been a top systems analyst, before walking away from the defense network after calling it a machine that feeds itself at any cost. His face appeared on screen, older now, with stubble, and the restless look of a man who had not stopped running from something for years. She told him about the signal, the coordinates, the Admiral's order, and the drone. Cade listened without interruption, then leaned closer and said only, "Bring it to me now." They met in an abandoned relay station outside the city, an old building with cracked walls and a roof that groaned in the wind. Cade's hands moved quickly as she handed him the drive he hooked it into. A portable decryptor lines of code flickered across the screen, shifting and rearranging themselves, until a second file unfolded, hidden deep within the first. It was not just Rin's voice. There was visual data distorted and ghosting with static, yet clear enough to show the faint outline of an alien ship burning through a debris field, and within that chaos a strange, pulsing symbol overlaid on the feed, a countdown clock, its numbers already ticking down from 6 days. Cade's jaw tightened. This isn't a warning. He said it's a schedule, and they're already on it. Mara's pulse quickened. She asked if the encryption could be traced. He nodded slowly. It's Oran military grade. Someone on their war council sent this, or Rin stole. It's straight from them. Either way, it means you've got the kind of attention that doesn't let go easily before she could respond. Cade pulled up another feed, a collection of amateur astronomer footage posted online. Shaky night sky clips showing bright bursts of light racing in perfect arcs before vanishing too quickly to be meteors. They all happened at the same times across the globe, matching the seconds on the countdown clock. Mara felt her stomach twist if the flashes were tied too. The clock then, every number drop meant they were already in motion that night as they worked a blackout hit the district. The old relay station plunged into absolute dark, the hum of Cade's decryptor cut off for exactly 11 minutes. Mara stood by the cracked window watching the city skyline vanish into shadow. No power, no comms, no sound, except for the faint whistle of the wind. Then just as suddenly the lights returned. The decryptor beeped back to life, and Cade stared at the screen in disbelief. The blackout times matched perfectly with the previous flashes. The events were linked. The message, the lights, the clock, all part of the same unseen plan. Mara asked why someone would kill Earth's power grids in short bursts. Cade's reply was quiet, to map the planet's defense blind spots to test the response time, and they're doing it right under everyone's nose. As they pieced the patterns together, Mara noticed movement at the edge of the station's cracked doorway, a shadow lingering, too still, too deliberate. She reached for her sidearm, but the shadow slipped away into the dark. Outside, Cade pulled up a sensor scan and confirmed it. A human biosignature had been standing just meters from them seconds ago. Whoever it was, they were gone now. But not without leaving a mark on her nerves. After securing the drive, Cade suggested they move locations. But Mara shook her head. She wanted to follow the coordinates from Rin's message before time ran out. They could not just wait for the countdown to hit 0. They needed to see what he had found out there. She checked the sky through the broken roof. Patches of faint light still danced between the stars far faster than natural movement. and for the first time she felt the vast blackness above them. Not as space, but as a ceiling, hiding something just beyond view, something that had already crossed into Earth's skies. The day felt heavier. As they left the station and boarded her shuttle, she could not shake the feeling that every step was being traced by someone both human and not human, watching every move, waiting for the clock to reach its final second. By the time the countdown showed only 4 days left, the tension in Mara's chest had settled into something constant, like a second heartbeat. Every news channel reported calm skies and stable systems, but she knew the truth was being buried out of sight. That morning, Cade called her with a clipped tone, telling her to check the encrypted civilian data feeds they had been tracking. One file stood out blurry footage from an unlisted orbital camera showing a defense satellite spinning out of control, its lights flickering before it exploded into silent fragments drifting in the void. There was no impact, no missile, no trace of an external strike. The damage came from inside, as if the machine had destroyed itself. The feed cut to another satellite, then another, the same pattern repeating over and over in different orbits. Mara leaned closer, her throat tight. This wasn't just a few units failing, it was the entire first layer of Earth's eyes in space going dark. Cade ran a trace. On the coordinates from Rin's original message, the signal led to Sector Delta 9, a dense asteroid field well outside safe navigation lanes officially restricted after multiple mining disasters, but in reality, home to secret test zones and graveyards of ships the government didn't want found. Cade suggested taking a patrol craft, but Mara refused anything official would be flagged before leaving atmosphere. Instead, they paid a cargo hauler pilot to look the other way and let them stow aboard his ship as it ran an ore drop to the edge of the sector. The trip was tense hours of silent travel, broken only by the faint rattle of loose panels until the asteroids filled the forward view, massive tumbling shadows lit by thin shards of sunlight. The hauler captain warned them to keep to themselves and not to ask questions. They slipped away in Mara's small auxiliary shuttle, hugging the jagged rocks. To mask their movement, the closer they got, the more wreckage they saw twisted. Hulls drifting without heat or power, some human, some alien, all marked by the same violent pattern of destruction. Internal ruptures, not battle scars. It was like the ships had been sabotaged from within by something they let their sensors sweep. The area and a faint signal blinked on the edge of the scanner. Moving slowly, Cade guided them toward it until a black box tumbled into view among the debris. It was battered but still sealed. Mara hauled it aboard, wiping frost from its surface. She recognized the insignia instantly. It was Rin's personal voice recorder. She hesitated, then triggered the playback. Static filled the cabin, then his voice emerged urgent and uneven. "The Aurans are not united. Some want peace, others want conquest. The attack will come from inside your own sky." He paused as if hearing something beyond the recorder's range when his voice returned. It was lower, faster. "There are humans who have chosen their side. You must find the counter-sequence before they—" The words cut off, replaced by a dull echo, like a hand slamming against the recorder. The file ended abruptly. Mara looked to Cade, her stomach twisting. If Rin had been telling the truth, then the real danger wasn't just alien ships in orbit, it was sabotage from Earth itself before they could speak. The shuttle's sensors blared warning tones, 3 unidentified craft approaching at high speed, closing the gap far faster than asteroid drift would allow. Mara ran a check on their signatures, expecting Auran readings, but what came back made her skin go cold. They were human Black Ops interceptors, the kind used for covert elimination runs. The lead craft pinged them with a false distress code, a lure to make them stop Cade's fingers. Flew over the controls, shifting their heat signature into the shadow of a large, spinning asteroid, but the interceptors kept moving in perfect sync. Mara's gut told her this wasn't a scare tactic. They had been tracked since the moment they left Earth. The only way to survive was to disappear completely into the asteroid field. She cut the main thrusters, letting the shuttle drift, then fired the lateral jets at the last second, sliding them into the dark mouth of a cavern hidden. In a massive rock, the inside of the cave was tight, their hull scraping stone until they reached a hollow chamber lit only by their running lights. What lay inside froze them both, an Oran stealth fighter, sleek black and dust-covered but intact. Its canopy cracked from age, yet still carrying the faint pulse of residual power. Cade's eyes met hers, and they both knew this was not abandoned by accident. Someone had hidden it here on purpose, waiting for the right hands or the wrong ones. The hollow chamber swallowed all sound. The asteroid walls pressed in close, and the Oran fighter sat like a predator sleeping with one eye open. Its surface shimmered faintly under the thin glow from Mara's shuttle lights. The hull bore strange, scorched. Lines almost like writing burned into the metal by heat and speed. Cade moved first. Running a scan on the alien craft, the readings came back alive. Its systems were still functional. Though dormant for years, Mara stepped closer, her boots crunching against the dust that had settled in the chamber, and she wondered how long it had been since anyone had touched this ship. Maybe since before Rin's last transmission, maybe longer. Cade found an access port along the underside and connected his. "Portable decryptor!" The fighter responded instantly with a ripple of light running across its skin like water. Then the cockpit hatch hissed open, a cold gust spilling out inside. The air was thin but breathable. The controls were a mix of alien curves and sharp lines. Human eyes were not meant to read, yet Cade navigated them with ease, his fingers pulling up a locked archive deep in the system. It took minutes to break the seal, but when the data appeared, Mara felt her chest tighten. It was a record of transmissions between Earth officials and a splinter group within the Oran war faction. The voices were coded, but the meaning was clear. Earth's corrupt leaders had been feeding intelligence to the Orans for months in exchange for power. Once the invasion began, the plan was brutal. Sabotage, Earth's own defense systems blame it on a false alien first strike, and then allow the Orans to move in under the chaos. The logs showed dates, locations, and names, some of which Mara recognized. From high command briefings, Rin had discovered this and somehow escaped with proof. No wonder they silenced him. She scrolled further and found one more file different from the rest, labeled in both Oran and English counter sequence. Cade opened. It and a schematic unfolded a weapon design, or more accurately a signal weapon, a pulse that could disable Oran warships without harming human tech. It was tagged as Rin's creation, meant to be fired from an orbital array. Mara realized with a sinking weight that the same arrays were now controlled by the very people working with the Orans. Before she could speak, the sensors flared again. The Black Ops interceptors had not given up. They were sweeping the asteroid field one rock at a time, and were now closing in on their hiding place. Cade shut down all power in both ships, plunging the chamber into absolute darkness. They listened to the low vibration of engines outside, passing so close, Mara could almost feel the air shift. Then a sudden burst of light flooded the cave, a search beam sweeping across stone and metal, catching the edge of the Oran fighter in a white glare. Mara reacted instantly, firing the stealth fighter's thrusters. Before Cade could warn her, the alien ship roared to life with a deep thrumming sound, unlike any human craft, and shot from the cave into the maze of spinning asteroids. The interceptors followed weapons, hot beams of plasma slicing the void behind them. But the fighter moved like it was alive, weaving through gaps barely wider than its wings. Cade's hands danced over the controls, rerouting power to the shields, while Mara kept their path tight. She realized the fighter's systems were predicting the asteroid movements, a fraction of a second ahead, guiding them through safe lanes. The chase stretched on for minutes until finally they broke free of the densest cluster and dove into a blind drift zone. The interceptors overshot their last turn and vanished from. The sensors, at least for now, breathing hard, Mara leveled the ship on a slow course back toward Earth, the data core still secure, but the risk doubled. They had an alien warship proof of betrayal and the only known weapon capable of turning the invasion, but they also had every reason to believe they were being tracked. Cade turned in his seat, his voice low. If we take this to anyone in the chain, they'll bury it or bury us. The only shot we have is to get this directly to someone outside. The control net. Mara nodded, already thinking of the underground network of resistance cells, people who had been watching the skies and warning of danger long before the public believed them. The weapon could be built if they had the plans. But it had to be done fast before the countdown reached 0, and before the Orans and their human allies closed their grip completely. She glanced out at the black curve of space ahead, knowing that even now something was moving in that darkness just beyond the range of human eyes waiting for the signal to strike. The countdown had bled away to a single day, and every hour felt heavier than the last storms had begun, rolling across the upper atmosphere, far too violent for the seasoned streaks of green and red light twisting through the clouds like veins. The news anchors called them rare auroras, but Mara knew better. She had seen similar patterns in Oran fleet entry footage years ago. It was the sign of mass ships pushing at the edges of the sky. The stolen fighter cut through the air over the Atlantic. As she and Cade kept their comms locked to the resistance network, each transmission was short-coded and bounced through dozens of hidden relays until finally they made contact with a cell operating out of a flooded metro system in the ruins of Old Boston. They landed the fighter under cover of night, hiding it beneath collapsed concrete and iron beams, then carried the data core through the dripping tunnels to a chamber where a handful of tired, determined faces waited. The leader, a woman named Lysa, had deep scars down her jaw and spoke with the clipped tone of someone who had spent too many years giving orders in desperate conditions. She listened to Mara's account without interruption, then took the core and slotted it into a battered console. The hologram of Rin's counter-sequence flickered to life across the damp air. Lisa's engineers immediately began copying and translating the design, muttering in disbelief at the precision of the weapon the pulse had to be, amplified through one of Earth's orbital defense hubs. But all such hubs were now under direct control of the faction working with the Orans, which meant getting access would be nearly impossible. Lysa didn't hesitate. She said if they wanted to stop the invasion, someone had to go up there, physically plant the pulse device into the hub's main array and trigger it manually. Cade pointed out that they would be walking into the most heavily guarded installation on the planet, but Mara had already decided there was no other way. They began working through the night building the device from the schematics, while the rest of the cell kept the comms open to monitor sky activity. The alien signatures beyond the moon were growing stronger. By the hour, the resistance warned that when the countdown hit 0, the first strikes would hit major cities before any public evacuation could even be attempted. Sometime before dawn, Mara's name and face began flashing across every official news network labeled as a traitor to Earth, accused of colluding with alien forces and spreading destabilizing misinformation. Cade smirked bitterly at the irony as they packed gear. If the public believed the broadcasts, it would make their approach to the hub even harder. By mid-morning, the storms had worsened the sky above the coast, flashing like a constant electrical fire. Mara and Cade launched in the Oran fighter its stealth systems, cloaking them from radar as they angled up toward orbit. The trip was tense. Every scan sweep could have exposed them, and the fighter's alien systems were never meant to blend with human traffic, but somehow they broke through the upper layers unseen. The orbital hub loomed ahead, a massive ring of steel, and light slowly turning against the black. The docking arms bristled with weapons and patrol craft, all under the control of the very people they had come to stop. They used the fighter's cloaking to slide into the shadow of one of the maintenance spires and latched on with magnetic clamps, then moved through the narrow crawl spaces that spiderwebbed the hub. The corridors inside were quiet. 2 quiet armed guards patrolled in patterns too regular to be random, which meant the entire station was in a state of alert as if expecting them. They stayed in the ducts above the main causeways until they reached the central array chamber, a cavern of glowing panels and hanging cables. The pulse device was heavy in Mara's hands as she approached. The core, she could almost feel the vibration of the alien fleet pressing against the upper edge of the atmosphere far below Earth's defense grid, was blind and broken. Above the sky, the Aurans were already here, waiting for the moment the clock would strike 0. Mara looked to Cade, his expression hard, and certain there was no time left for anything except the final step. The countdown struck its final hour as Mara and Cade slipped into the shadows of the central array chamber. The hum of the orbital hub surrounded them, a deep mechanical heartbeat that seemed to echo in her bones far below, through the observation windows. Earth's surface was shrouded in violent storms, sheets of lightning tearing across entire continents. The resistance comms crackled in her earpiece with fragmented reports, alien ships breaking through the upper atmosphere, plasma strikes, gutting coastal cities, defenses collapsing in minutes. The enemy was here and the sky itself was falling. Cade moved to the main console, his hands flying over the alien-human hybrid controls, pulling up the core interface for the hub's signal network. The plan was simple, but deadly: connect Rin's pulse device to the main array and broadcast it across every channel in orbit. The effect should disable Auran warships instantly, but the console flashed a lockout warning: biometric authorization required. Mara's heart sank. They had expected encryption codes, maybe even a physical key. But not this. Cade tried overriding the system, forcing a bypass. Yet each attempt was met with the same silent denial. The alien fleet grew closer, their massive silhouettes blotting out the stars as they descended. The chamber trembled with distant impacts. The first wave was hitting the upper cities tethered to the hub, and the tremors were climbing upward. Panic threatened to claw its way into her mind until she remembered Rin's voice in the recording and the way his last words had been cut off too soon. She thought about the schematics labeled in both Auran and English and the fact that the counter-sequence file had been tagged with a string of numbers she had never understood until now. A date. Her birth date. Her pulse quickened. She stepped forward. Pressing her palm against the scanner, the console hesitated, then glowed. Green authorization. Accepted. Rin had built her into the failsafe. Her hand trembled as she locked the pulse device into place. The chamber's lights dimmed as the weapon powered. Up a low rising hum filling the air outside the viewport, the alien fleet had reached full assault position, their weapons flaring like distant suns, plasma lances tearing through city spires on the surface. One massive ship lined up its main cannon. Toward New York, another toward Washington, she triggered the sequence. A shockwave of invisible energy rippled outward, racing through orbit and beyond. In seconds, the first alien warship froze, mid-strike, its weapons flickering out, engines dying. The same happened to the next and the next. A chain reaction cascading through the entire fleet. One by one, the ships went silent, drifting powerless, their black hulls glinting cold in the sunlight. Some tumbled into the ocean below, sending up walls of steam. Others slammed into empty deserts or mountains. The sky began to clear as if the planet itself was taking a long breath below. Cheers erupted over resistance comms, but Mara didn't move. She knew victory never came so clean. The hub alarms wailed, guards pouring into the chamber. Weapons raised, she and Cade exchanged a glance, then dove for cover, returning fire in the chaos. She managed to pull the pulse device free just before a stray shot tore through the console. The weapon was useless now, but the data it carried still proved everything. The transmissions, the names, the pact between Earth's leaders and the Auran war faction. The guards were closing in when the station shuddered violently. A drifting alien ship had collided with one of the outer rings, tearing a breach in the structure. Decompression roared through the corridors, sucking bodies, equipment, and shattered glass into the void. Mara and Cade fought their way toward the fighter alarms and sirens, blending with the howl of escaping air. The alien craft's systems roared to life as they launched, spinning free of the crippled hub in their wake. The earth hung blue and scarred below the fleet, broken and scattered. Cade looked at her across the cockpit, his voice rough. "We bought time, but they'll be back." Mara stared at the horizon, where the curve of the planet met the emptiness of space. The war had been delayed, but not ended. She knew somewhere beyond human reach, the Orans would regroup, and the humans, who had betrayed their own world, would still be out there, waiting for another chance. The stars shimmered like 1,000 silent eyes watching as she set the fighter on a slow descent toward the recovering planet. The fight was far from over, but for now, Earth was breathing again, and Rin's voice no longer echoed as a warning. It was a promise that they had survived the first wave.